You're listening to Amazing Radio. This is Amazing Afternoons. Delighted to say that I have Bernard Butler on the line with me right now. Bernard, how are things?
It's superb, Frankie. Always beautiful here, down here, paved with gold.
Yes, exactly. I've been there myself, but I don't think I've been in those surroundings behind you. Are you? Is this your working space these days?
Yeah, this is my kind of loft. It was my loft sort of space until I had children come along and ruin everything for me. And they used this space for their teenage years, and then they've gone again now anyway. So this is my studio again. Yeah, it's just my loft in my house. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, was this the space where you made this record, which we're going to speak about? Good grief.
Yeah, I've done an all. I mean, it looks pretty unremarkable in this space, as you can see. It's pretty just like most people's loft. But I've made an unbelievable amount of records in here, actually, from this record, Good Grief, through to things like Duffy and stuff like that. We're all done in this room. It's kind of amazing, really, how much stuff happened in here.
No, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, let's
Mm,
speak about this record then. 25
mm,
years since your last solo record, but that's
yeah.
maybe like, the headline, but I know better than anyone that you've been really active in that 25 years, making other people's records and doing records and things like that, haven't you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of good headline, 25 years, but it wasn't it. It wasn't planned like that. Put it that way. It's just it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to wait 20 years and have this big return or something. It's just I do sort of things as they come along, and uh, I treat music, every record is as my own, as you know, and to take whether I'm writing or producing or singing or playing tambourine or whatever, you have to have the same sort of dedication to everything and treat them the same. So I don't really have the same separation that other people do, but I can see how it becomes the solo album, and it's suddenly a big thing. But for me, it was just some music I was making, and here we are, and it's come
Yeah.
out with me talking about it.
Yeah, it's good. I like the way your career's moved, or especially over the last 10 years or something, Bernard, because I think you just kind of you get interested in something, you kind of you seem to obsess with it a bit and people you work with and then end up just collaborating with them on something or maybe paying homage in some way to something. And I love the kind of organicness to that. And you just have a freedom about your music, which is quite envious, I think, for a lot of musicians, the way you just kind of fall onto these projects. I mean, your last project was pretty successful as well with Jesse Buckley. It got nominated for the Mercury Music Prize as well, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you form relationships just like we do in every area of our life, and I'm blessed, really, I'm really lucky. I know that I've sort of set myself from quite a young age um, out in that way. I mean, even when I was a kid as a musician, I liked being around musicians, whoever they were, brass players or violin players or whatever. I liked being around people, and you form relationships with people, and you just see where they go, and yeah, and you totally fall in love with projects, and that hopefully. I sort of allow that to happen, to really devote myself to people and see how far that can go, and inevitably they often don't last as a lifetime, but that's also really there's something really nice about that. You can flirt through musical relationships and get the best out of them for the moment, and then go on a separate path, go on another path, another journey. So yeah, I'm really well aware that I'm blessed in that way, but also at the same time, for me, it feels completely natural. That's the natural way of doing it. Doing sort of one thing forever is a very, very closeted way of making music from my perspective.
Yeah, I can completely understand what you're saying. And it seems like you have even more freedom now with the introduction of 335 recordings as a label as well. This is going to be the first release, your own album. But is this going to be a space and a place for you just to release things you're working on? Other people can come to you with ideas. What's the idea then, Bernard?
Yeah, well, when it was announced, it was I had a deluge of "Will you sign my band?" you know, and that took me a bit by surprise. I was like, "Whoa, hold on a second here! I haven't set up an office block and had a launch party in Soho or anything like that, and there's endless people going around. It's not Apple, Apple Records. So really, it was just it's a sort of a faceplate to and a logo to get this record out so that I could do things on my own. And I'm going through a company called Republic of Music who are distributing it. But with that, there's a whole load of things that I'd love to do. Mainly things that I've had on the back burner for years, which once I get through this phase with this record, then it gives me an opportunity to put those out. Yeah, but I'm not really up. Don't send me your demo. I'm not. I can't dish out advances, you know, and I'd be a terrible A&R person. You don't want me as your record company, believe me.
Well, from what I can gather on the ground, Bernard, no one's dishing out advances anymore anyway. So don't worry about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should hear a track you've recorded from us. You've done a lovely version of Deep Emotions in that very room where you are right now.
Yeah.
Just tell us before we play the track, and then we'll have a chat afterwards. Just tell us a little bit about this track. How long has it been in the locker? Was this a recent track you've had, or has it been under your hat for a while?
This was maybe most of these songs came around in the last 2 or 3 years. When I did the record with Jesse Buckley, that sort of interrupted everything really, and I was kind of in the process of doing this, and I'd kind of started writing songs. I don't think I'd written this one actually, but I'd started writing, and then Jesse came along, and that became one of those things that I did fall in love with, and you know, just pursue, you know, down tools, and thought, right, I'm going to do this and see where it takes me. And then Jessie went back to Hollywood or wherever she is, and I went back up here and resumed. So yeah, and so that's kind of the path of it, and it was quite important, that record, in the middle of everything, because it sort of, although I'd started an idea of how to write, then I started doing that process with Jessie and realized that it kind of worked, and it really worked with her. So really, I think we wrote some really good, I really enjoyed writing those songs with her, and it gave me a buzz to then go on and carry, you know, it gives you a confidence. You think, well, I know what I'm doing here now, and I'll get this finished. So this is probably done in about the last 18 months or so. Yeah, this song.
Oh, amazing. Well, let's hear it right now. This is a very special version for Amazing Radio. It's Deep Emotions from Bernard Butler.
I'll watch the stars align from Primrose Hill. I love you, baby, guess I always will. I always will. I'm hard to reason with, well, that's not in doubt. My daughter tells me I'm as stubborn as her throughout, but you've got me in your pocket and I'm in your mouth, spouting holy water like some sacred cow. I don't think I should trust you, I don't think I know how, when I've got deep emotions running all through me. They're just like a river heading out to the sea. When they take me over, well, I'm harder to reach, I'm drawn to the boundaries of longitude. I like the companionship of solitude. Yes, solitude. The saddest story in my anguish and pain. The son, the father walk, the poet explains the rules. 'Cause I've been feeling sick, I've got myself, but I get feelings in this place I don't know where else. Yes, I've got deep emotions running through my veins. Sometimes I feel guilty, sometimes I feel pain when they take me over. Well, that's hard to explain, to explain. Do 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 do. But you've got it in the pocket, baby. Take a bow, spouting platitudes like some sacred cow. I don't think I should trust you. I don't think I'd know how. Take on these deep emotions running all through me. They're just like a river heading out to the sea. When they take me over, well, I'm harder to beat, to be. Do 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 do.
So that was Deep Emotions. Bernard Butler on the line with us and in session for us as well here on Amazing Radio. I want to hear more about the process of the record, because I know you are very adept to recording everything yourself. But is it only yourself on this record? Did you get any mates, any favors on this record?
Yeah, I got a few favors, some strings. I did play some violin myself. When I played violin when I was a kid, pretty roughly. I wish I'd carried on, but I didn't. And so I've always had a sort of soft spot for violins. And during COVID, I got myself a cheap 30 quid Amazon violin, and I thought, how badly can this go? And I started getting into making John Cale style drones, because I thought, if I can just do that, hold a bow and make sort of drones and put lots of reverb on it, that could be a really nice sound. And I did that a lot on the Jesse record, actually. And so I did that. I started doing that on this record, just to hear how things sound. A lot of the times when you're recording, or you're in the process of creating something, it's throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks, and you can't just hire a string section just to see, is this going to be any good or not. You can't spend money doing that. So I did a bit of violin myself to see if it would work out, and then I got in a couple of people. My friend Sally Herbert, who's done strings for me for years and years and years. Sally did some strings actually on the song Deep Emotions, and another friend of mine called Joe O'Keefe. There's no one else actually. There's Paul Borchers plays. My friend Paul Borchers plays some drums. He didn't know about it. I used some drums that I'd used with him on a track before, and sort of turned them upside down and played the music over it, and then told him afterwards. Apart from that, everything else is here. It's me playing my drums badly in the room here, and recording everything else. Do you know, honestly, sometimes this comes to me as like I'm a fabulous multi-instrumentalist or something like that, and I don't really think about it like that. I'm a fairly cat-candid amateur at most things, and but I like the idea of picking things up and seeing what I can get out of my limitations, and often that's a real bonus, I think, particularly with things like drums. Bass guitar, I've got no patience for it all. Like, I just don't really have any interest, so I'll never play the bass guitar more than once on a song. I'll just play some bass and think it will be fine. So I think that's a bonus, rather than having a bass player in for a week to play some amazing bass, because I just don't really care.
Yeah, bass players are grumpy anyway, aren't they? So you don't want them around. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned your crack at the violin there. I'm pleased to say, I once heard Ryan Jarman have a crack at a violin, which he told me he was very adverse to playing. It was terrible. So I'm glad.
Yeah, I have recorded Ryan Jarman playing violin. He came in and played on a Kate Nash song, and I watched Ryan. He's the most uncomfortable looking violin player I've ever noticed. It just doesn't look right. It sounded fine. He made some noises, but it just looked all wrong. There was
Yeah.
something about it. Ryan, what are you? Why are you doing this? I can't imagine. I can't imagine somewhere in Wakefield, Ryan Jarman is now taking violin lessons.
No, I think he lives stateside now. Anyway, he lives over
Oh,
in
does he?
America. Oh, of
Oh
course he
God!
does. Yeah, of
Oh,
course he
of
does.
course,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, yeah.
You probably recognize just as much for your producing as you are as a musician these days, Bernard. Probably should get a little mention maybe about the passing of Steve Albini in the last 24 hours because he's a huge
Yeah.
name in music production.
Hmm. Yeah. Obviously very sad circumstances. And as a producer, in terms of his own work, there's records that I like and records that I'm not interested in, really. So I don't go whenever anybody. How do I say this very respectfully? Whenever anyone dies, there's a massive outpouring of, "I loved everything you did," and actually, well, why weren't you saying it 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Then, so I feel a little bit like that. But I feel what I always picked up on from Steve Albini, which was things that he said and the way he spoke and the way he spoke about recording and process, and that always really impressed me. I think he could come across or had a sort of reputation as being in some way awkward and challenging, and and those for me are really key, really positive words. So they're things that are normally used as negatives, with character. We're all supposed to be brilliant and sunshine all of the time, but when I sort of see people who are challenging and challenge musicians, I always just think, right, yeah, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I always got the feeling that he always had that mindset from the way he spoke, that look, this isn't a big deal. This is just what you're supposed to do. And lots of people have spoken the last couple of days, since yesterday, about how he raised the bar. And I think probably the first thing he'd say back if he could hear this now was like, well, why wasn't the bar there in the first place?
Mhm.
And so I think that's what's interesting about it. Always when people are challenging in music or any art form, it's not really just about whether you love their content or rush to sort of love every song they make or painting they paint or something. It's actually what they do to facilitate other people to be better, to be more interesting, to ask questions about an art form. So for that, it's a great loss. And the particularly where we are with music production at the moment is so commercially focused, so generic, which I find very kind of uninteresting. So he's a great loss in that sense because he's somebody who would just ask the question.
Yeah, some nice words there, Bernard. I just want to pick up on a couple of things you said there because I hear at Amazing Radio get through a lot of new and emerging music from a lot of new and emerging bands, and often we're told by the industry this is the best time to be a musician. Anyone can make an album in their bedroom, the access that you just upload it, and then anyone in the world can have it. But there's so much music I play, Bernard, where I think about people like yourself and people I've worked with in the past, and I think if they could just spend a day with someone who knows how to structure things or just to challenge someone on an idea, this could be so much better. And I do think that new music is missing that because of budgets and whatever, money for the grassroots side of the industry. Bands are missing out on the potential a little bit, not just bands, but artists in general, because yes, it's brilliant that they can make a record in a day and upload it and stream it within a day. But I think the process in terms of being challenged by respected peers and people within the industry, I think that's kind of getting lost a little bit. There's a conversation to be had around this, isn't there? And you've touched upon it already.
Absolutely, yeah. I think he really highlights it. I mean, it struck me one of his main things was just having people stand in a room together and find out who they are, and not be and just to say, well, this is who you are. This is what you sound like. Now, what do you think? And that sounds like a really old-fashioned and straightforward thing to do, but actually having musicians all stand in a room together rather than working on laptops or phones very separately and sending things to each other I think it's an amazing part of basically the first step I always take with a group of musicians is get in a room together and make sound together in a room and make decisions, and you can do it really quickly just in a room as human beings. And because of computers and all the joys of all that, we have lost that sense. And but also, I always got the feeling that with musicians he worked with, he would press record and allow them to hear who they are and say it's okay for you to be this, not to tell them what they should be, or what the record company needs, or what the radio needs, or something like that. But actually say this is who you are. This is what you are. Is there anything wrong with that? Now be the best at what you're doing, and work from there. And of course, all the great art, all the great music, writing is all about character and personality. It's all about trying to find a personality and being confident about expressing that, however, because it's unique. And I think what you're kind of getting at is that, yeah, it's quite hard to find that personality because there's so many options, and there's so many tools available to turn you into something else that you might desire, that it's very, very hard to just cling to who you are, when you wake up and look in the mirror, and just cling and just say that's it.
Yeah, I think you've done that yourself on this record. I think that because of the way you've arrived at this record and just got it out there. I think you're doing that, but maybe people can learn from that as well. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I've never had any choice. That's always just the way my brain works, and I work on my own and on my own little island a lot of the time, and gets to the point where I've been doing it 30 years, over 30 years, and you sort of think you made it this far. Why are you going to start listening to people now?
Yeah, totally. Well, you're going to leave Bernard Island to do some tour dates to support this record, aren't you? Including the in-store tour as well. Are you looking forward to getting on the road? And is it just yourself out there?
Yeah, so my show again is just me, and that's quite a deliberate thing. How this started was probably about 6-7 years ago. I started going into a rehearsal room to find myself. I just started. People used to say to me all the time, why don't you play? What do you do? People thought I'd retired because I was, and I'd say, well, I'd made 3-4 albums this year, but it just didn't register to anybody, for all the reasons we've just talked about. All my music's all over the place with you lot and lots of other people, and you couldn't really define it. And so I thought, well, how about I try and define what it is myself? Because I don't really know why I've made all this music, So I started doing a rehearsal once a week on my own with a guitar and getting out songs, just from memory, really, and just trying to play them on a guitar and singing them, and trying to see how a single voice could express different songs and different times, or different projects I'd worked on as well. And I did this for about a year. And what I found is I was couldn't remember a lot of the songs, but I wasn't looking them up. I wasn't trying to looking up lyrics and thing. If I heard lyrics I didn't like, I'd replace them, and I was taking out the string arrangements and the key changes or whatever I wanted to, and improvising an awful lot. And so I started this is where this record started. And so at the other end of it, that's the way I'm performing it now, as a solo thing with just a couple of guitars. And it's a really nice thing. You can go out every night and feel an audience, and understand that a performance is a two-way street. It's about the audience and the room and the part of the country you go to, and all those things really make a big difference. And my performance is largely improvised based on that. I can do what I want with the songs because I don't have a bass player to catch up with me or to moan that I've missed bits. I can just drop a bit. If I don't fancy doing this bit, I just think, okay, I'll leave that now, I'm bored. Or I can let it go on forever, So it's nice, but I can guarantee it is different every night.
Oh, that's good. I think the fans will like to hear that. So you're going to do the in-store tour and then the June UK tour proper as well. It all looks very exciting. We've caught you just before it all kicks off, Bernard. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us here on Amazing Radio.
Thanks so much for having me. I so appreciate it. it's a really real joy to and a privilege to get to talk about the work that you do, you know, and be asked interesting questions. You know, people don't say that often enough, because I think often when you're on the promo trail when you're younger, you take it all for granted, and actually later down the line, it's like, wow, somebody actually gives one, you know.
Yeah. Well, we do.
And it's and I'm curious why.
Well, thanks, Bernard, for your time, and all the best with the record.
Thanks so much, Frankie.